Hi, welcome to Sandra's Sisterhood. I'm Carrie, and this is a YouTube channel for the single and childless, not by choice person. Our video today is about low mood or depression, and this video is a part of the Are These Feelings Normal series. So we talked about some previous feelings in some previous videos that I will link down below if you would like to watch those. But today we're talking about low mood and depression, and this is absolutely normal for somebody going through grief. And being childless not by choice is absolutely a type of grief. I do want to say off the bat that if you feel like you are experiencing depression, it is a good idea to talk with your doctor about that and also seek out the help of a therapist. If you are experiencing any suicidal thoughts, then what I want you to do is call the emergency crisis line in your area. If you're in the United States, you can dial 988, which is the mental health crisis line, or you can always dial 911. You can also walk into any emergency department. This video is not a substitute for therapy. And I want to talk about low mood and depression because it is something that most people who are going through this type of grief will experience. It doesn't mean that suicidal thoughts aren't something that you should just casually accept that you have and not get treatment for it. Again, if you are experiencing suicidal thoughts or experiencing not wanting to live, please reach out to your doctor or your emergency support services in your community. So, low mood and depression is a stage of grief. And when we talk about grief and grief related to being childless, not by choice, we often kind of categorize it as being a type of disenfranchised grief. And disenfranchised grief is grief that isn't recognized by the larger society. And when you're experiencing something as intense and as painful as grief and then not having it recognized by the people around you, that can absolutely fuel some low mood and or depression. Again, you're experiencing something that a lot of people don't understand, and when you interact with others, they may be interacting or trying to support you with really good intentions, but it's not uncommon for people to say things that may even inadvertently make us feel worse or make us feel more othered or make us feel kind of hopeless about the future because most people don't conceptualize being single and childless, not by choice, as having a thriving, fulfilling life. And you absolutely can. Even if while you're watching this in the moment, you may think, she doesn't know what she's talking about. I don't believe her. I'm telling you, I was in the depths of the grief as well. And it is possible to lift out of that. It doesn't mean that you won't sort of fluctuate in there a little bit, depending on sort of what's going on. And I'm telling you, it is possible. So do not give up. Low mood related to childlessness, like I said, is normal. And some ways that depression can show up is low energy, fatigue, irritability. That's often one that isn't always recognized as a symptom of depression, but irritability, feeling short-fused, low distress tolerance, particularly when that's an unusual thing for that person, it's absolutely a symptom of depression. Low focus and concentration, low appetite or an increase in appetite, so any changes in appetite, low self-worth, feeling like a burden, hopelessness, no longer enjoying doing the things that you previously liked doing. If you are experiencing any symptoms related to this, then please go talk with your doctor. A lot of people don't think about going to see their primary care doctor or GP when they're experiencing depression, and it's a really good sort of first entry point for a lot of people. Oftentimes, primary care doctors have therapists within their office, or they have relationships with therapists in the community that they can help refer you to. I understand that finding a therapist can be sometimes can be really tricky, And remember, your primary care doctor could be a good place to start. I'm a therapist in a primary care doctor's office for my W-2 job. And so I know they exist. Not everywhere, but they do. So, the other thing that could really make low mood or depression kind of feel more difficult when you're childless, not by choice, is that oftentimes you're absolutely doing the very best that you can do, trying to manage all of these symptoms, but there's no real roadmap that we see out there for how to get through something like this. Oftentimes, when we see people who are single and childless, not by choice, kind of portrayed in the media, portrayed in society, or when we hear people talk about them, it's in a kind of deviant or derogatory way. And so when you're sitting there thinking, well, that's me, it's not unusual to absorb some of that. And those people are wrong. Some people say those things because it's laced in a lot of power and control. But there is no certainty that because you are single and childless, not by choice, it means that you are not going to be able to have a fulfilling life. It's going to be real crappy as you're working through that grief. And it'll be hard, but it's not a impossibility that you can get through it. In fact, it's more of a likelihood that you can get through it if you take the necessary steps, which is giving yourself grace, potentially seeing a therapist, and surrounding yourself in community. But more about that later in our video. So you don't have the roadmap, right, laid out in front of you. And remind yourself that just because that roadmap or that recipe to manage this grief isn't laid out in front of you, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. If you're watching this video, it likely means you're trying to find some of those things, right? And remember that when media do show people who are single and childless, not by choice, they often only show the very middle piece of that or the beginning. They don't show the end. So we get this really truncated version of somebody trying to kind of work through it. Or they're working through it in a way where they get what they want by the end of the movie, right? I mean, like, Hallmark movies are kind of the classic example of this. If somebody is feeling a lot of grief that they're not partnered by the end of the movie, lo and behold, they find some, hot, sexy partner that, saves the day. Or in the end, they have the baby. And that's just not how it works out for everybody. And if it didn't work out for you that way, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have a blessed life. It doesn't mean that you have been abandoned. It just means your life is going to look a little bit different. And when I say just, I don't mean to minimize the difficulty around it. And I say it to emphasize that you can get through this. Okay? So this brings us, well, how do I get through this? Again, what I'm about to say is not a substitute for therapy. But here are some things that I would suggest if you're feeling some low mood. If you're feeling depression, please seek out a therapist or talk with your doctor. So engaging in community of those that are childless, not by choice. If you're single and childless, not by choice, Sandra Sisterhood is a really good place to start. There's also Childless Not By Choice accounts on Instagram, Facebook, things like that. Follow them or join those groups. It's okay to lurk for a little bit if you are feeling anxious or nervous about either identifying as that or you're not sure what to say. Just because you join those groups, it doesn't mean you're kind of putting the nail sort of to close that chapter forever. But it may help you. It may help you get through what you're going through in the moment. Again, it is absolutely okay to lurk. In fact, I encourage it. And then as you start to feel a little bit more comfortable, then maybe you start taking more and more steps forward, right? Maybe you start engaging in the comments. Maybe you comment on the videos that you see on a YouTube channel. Maybe you comment on the comments that you see on this other social media accounts. And then as you start to feel a little bit more comfortable with that, if there are some like virtual events, or if you're really lucky and you get some in-person events, then maybe you start working toward those. Again, you can participate as much or as little as you want, and by listening or absorbing, you're also participating. Don't not join because you don't want to go all in at first. It's okay to baby step it, right? Um, it just the movie What About Bob just flashed through my head when they're talking about baby steps. But it's okay to baby step it. Other things that you can do in order to help mood, and sometimes this gets like an eye roll around it, and I understand it, but the reason it keeps bringing people bring it up is because it does work. Is to kind of think of the big three, which is nutrition, movement, and sleep. So if you're struggling in any of those three areas, again, you can talk with your doctor. And also, maybe you identify maybe one thing in each of those areas, or if that feels too overwhelming, one thing in one of those areas that you can do in order to help get yourself on a better routine related to that. Related to sleep, I have a video on Sounder Sisterhood that kind of talks about some tips around that. If you meet the criteria for a diagnosis of depression, or you're experiencing symptoms of not wanting, or you're experiencing thoughts of not wanting to live, again, please see a therapist, go to your doctor, or seek out emergency services if you need that. I will put some links to different directories in order to find a therapist in the notes under the video. Some that you can think of as Therapy Den, Psychology Today, and I understand that that can feel really overwhelming sometimes when you're sifting through these directories, and then you have to like call and leave messages or email and things like that. And that's why I say consider going to see your PCP if that feels too overwhelming. Two directories for supports that I want to just call out, and that I'll put their links below as well, related to being childless not by choice, is worldchildlessweek.net, tottenhamjournal.com. They also have wellness directories that are specifically related to being childless not by choice. Sounder Sisterhood is a virtual community if you're single and childless not by choice. And the Childless Collective is another really robust online and virtual support network that you can check out as well. So you can feel better again. Again, I've been through an experience of grieving, being childless, not by choice. And I know that you can come forward and you can get through this. And I know that it really sucks, but you can do it. Look at the resources that I put below and continue to follow Sounder Sisterhood for more videos for the single and childless not by choice person.